In the battlefields of Mantes, where liberty's at stake, automaton tanks roll forth, the metal forms awake. With armor thick and guns ablaze, they seem invincible, true. But we stand tall, united strong, with strategies anew. Fight, fight, brave Helldivers, fight against the automaton's might. With sentries, bombs, and stratagems, we'll pierce their armor one by one. Like mini bosses, they emerge from dropships in the sky. Their steel shells gleaming as they advance, we cannot deny. But with allies by our side, and tactics finely tuned, we'll face the tanks undaunted till victory is resumed. Fight, fight, brave Helldivers, fight against the automaton's might. With sentries, bombs, and stratagems.
Good morning, brave Helldivers. That was Against the Automaton's Might by Neuralbard, one of the first Helldiver songs that I ever heard, and something that always gets me fired up to fight every time that I hear it. That's also why I use it as an alarm sound to wake me up for work in the morning, much to the frustration of my lovely lazy bones of a significant other. And really, right now, we could all use some more of that kind of motivation. As you might already know if you follow my media feed, my family has suffered an immense tragedy. My father, Thorkel Einarjar, had not been a well man for some time. He suffered from explosive mood swings, forgetting conversations, and even whole days, disassociating from himself, and probably an awful lot of other symptoms that my mother and I had no idea of because his generation just wasn't the kind of people that talked about mental health a lot. Or hardly at all, for that matter. Last Thursday afternoon, he went out into the backyard shed on our property on Super Earth and took fate into his own hands by ending his life. I hardly even know what to say. He was always so unbelievably strong. I never figured him to be the type to do this, but rather to prevent someone else from doing it. To save a life. He always told me, all my life, to finish what I started. Well, Helldivers, I'm in the galactic war for the duration. We may not have started this war, but by sweet liberty, I'm going to finish it, so that when my time comes, and it is time for me to see him again, in my father's mighty company, I shall not be ashamed. That doesn't mean that we have an easy task ahead of us, though. While I might have taken a break from my broadcast work, I had been keeping up on what was happening out here and making dives of my own. I won't mince words, the incineration core absolutely flattened us. As to the massive scaling up of factory strata production, no one was ready for this. But tonight I'll be doing a Know Your Foe segment on factory shredders to highlight the weaknesses and how to take them down. The first thing on my Monday morning agenda is the covering of the Weekly Raven, which I am told is going to have some changes to include smaller papers, no more Norse lore, and no more Wolf Diver news. Yeah, fluff that. My dad was huge on Norse history, so if Munnan doesn't feel like doing Lore of the Week, I absolutely will. He and Mom, they had plans on binge-watching this entire box set of Vikings, which is sitting unopened on the living room table. So I have absolutely zero plans on letting my Viking fandom go. Because I'm stubborn and I have serious issues of knowing when to give up. This week's issue dives right into the automaton situation, where the incineration core tore through the western front into blitzkrieg like a tornado of knives. More research about these new war machines is forthcoming, but I've already figured out some tricks to help Helldivers smoke them. I'll be putting my findings together in a Know Your Foe report this evening. It also goes into the new Cowboy Warbond, Borderline Justice, which I have tried out and found to my liking. The new Gunslinger perk is a massive buff to the Senator, which has gone from an emergency sidearm to my primary weapon. Radio Calculator. As you might already know, the Incineration Corps has been making a beeline for the old Severance sector. The bots have wanted to recapture the industrial facilities from their first regime there for some time, and they definitely want to take the creek back. Intelligence reports state that they're going to be making a play for the creek sometime in the next 2 weeks. likely going to try to reclaim it on the anniversary of its liberation in the first week of April. Well, I'm not going to let them do that. I'm going to finish what I started on the creek. However, the collective captured the weapons base on X-45 and the mech factory on Varylia 5, so they're going to be throwing Legion Diver mech patterns at us. Thanks, Valerian. I'm glad you didn't destroy those. Bring it on. Every creation the mainframe has ever produced always comes with a fatal flaw, a weakness in its Citadel armor patterning. I'll find it, and I'll show others how to take these robo-bozos down. Now we move into Norse Law of the Week with Fjorgen and, Fjorgen, with one less N. That's gotta be awkward around Christmas and birthdays. They are considered to be gods of the sky and earth. These names might refer to the same person, that being Thor's mother, and both names refer to Earth. Thor's wife, Sif, is also connected to the Earth, suggesting that they all represent a Mother Earth idea. As an aside, this is why I personally refer to Super Earth as our mother planet. Fjorgen, with two N's, isn't as well known, but his name is like that of other sky gods. There is a tale that links him to Frigg, who is Odin's wife, indicating that he could be another version of a sky god. Altogether, these symbolize the connection between earth and sky in Norse myth. Which does make sense because Thor's power, lightning, has always been considered a metaphysical demonstration of the bridge between earth and sky. That and rainbows. We also have a bit here about the term Viking, which is used as a catch-all term for the tribes raiding from the Norwegian peninsula, and generally gave any neighbors they had who were inept at war a very difficult time. This was actually a verb used during that time when Vikings actually did the thing that it is describing and not as a noun. To Viking meant to do anything regarding the seafaring, being it trading, traveling, or braining some dude with an axe, as wolf divers often do. As time passed and different groups heard the word, that led to people simply calling the tribes engaging in this activity Vikings, and so the inaccuracy stuck. The proper term for anyone engaging in the trade of a Viking is Vikinger. So yeah, we're learning a bunch about Norse grammar today. Do you see why I love this paper, Helldivers? Even so, all future articles for history will refer to them as Vikings, as it is much easier to grasp what nationality and culture are being represented. I mean, yeah, it makes sense. Is it accurate to the culture to call them Vikings? Well, no. But we all speak super English here, and we should all use the same words so you can understand the words flowing from my mouth, you know? That's been another issue of the Weekly Raven, everyone. As always, I'd like to thank Yunin, Hilmar, Oracle, Starlo, Venom, Jovio, Silas, and, Hellfire Sturm for another week of fine work that gave me some badly needed smiles. Now we move into news from the business sphere. While the stock market prices might not have updated yet, as only the most insane or devoted among us would dare to be awake at 5:30 a.m. for the purpose of knuckling down on media publication, there is still plenty to talk about. After the, rather sudden change in the state of his head regarding Gunvald's head of stake, the Solar Corporate Empire is holding a referendum to determine what their governing style is going to be moving forward. Some argue that the old system worked just fine, and that Gunvaldus went off the rails crazy. But I would argue that if your system of governance created conditions where this was even possible for any tyrant, it was fatally flawed, and those flaws should be addressed. In a more civilized society, the orders to jail the corporate board should have been laughed out of the halls of government, especially from someone who just lost what was already an incredibly transparent and fair election. That being said, the referendum will last another 5 weeks, with this week deciding what the governance system is going to be. As a Helldiver, I obviously pitch democracy as my choice, as that is often the most fair type of decision-making when dealing with a population that has been properly informed on the matter in question with unbiased news reporting. Which is why I often do not offer my opinion on matters, but rather simply observe the facts. Facts such as the first of my people have made their way into Gunvald's military. Many Fauna Sapiens were granted incredible gifts through their mutation, such as night vision, acute hearing, claws, or the mighty strength of the beast, and are particularly well suited for combat. However, all of the factions that were originally part of the corporate board have walked out of the government reorganization decolonization talks and refuse to return. This demonstration of a lack of cooperation is seriously harshing the vibe of getting the wheels of society turning again, but I can kind of understand where they are coming from on this. A lot of these people were illegally imprisoned by Gunvaldus and have no reason to trust us yet. We've got to earn that trust back. That being said, there is some amount of official paperwork filed for the creation of another faction that isn't quite a governmental body, but one that has felt its sting. They're still workshopping the name, but they are leaning heavily toward the Wildheart Party, and there is talk of picking me to represent it, with the people claiming that I'm the only one that they can really trust. Especially since there is some degree of discussion happening on Gunvault that is, disquieting. For a little bit there, the vote looked to be leaning toward corporate oligarchy as a government style, which looking back over the history of Super Earth, that is not a good idea, and let me elucidate exactly why. There are fundamental issues with running government like you do a corporation. The two are entirely different beasts that should never meet. Take something like water. You have the infrastructure set up to extract it, purify it, bottle it, and sell it. People are able to purchase something that they need for basic life, but now they are also dependent upon you for this necessity. You can rack up quite a lot of money from this, especially if you exert influence from that money to bump off any competition, establishing a firm corporate monopoly. The only thing that could stop you at that point would be antitrust government measures, but when the people doing this one example with this one good are also the government? Do you see the problem here? And this isn't me just talking out of my tail. A corporation on Earth that was actually attempted this. Look into Nestle sometime if you really want to damage your perception of humanity. On any planet that alleges itself to be a first world planet, no one should be going hungry and doing without. No one should be thirsty and not have access to water regardless of class. End of story. Part of why I feel that the lower classes suffer so is that civilization never hammered out the details on how the basic necessities for life, what you need in order to keep living and play ball with society, are fundamental human rights. And fauna sapien rights if you want to listen to the Ministry of Truth angle on us. Something my father and I often debated about regarding the nature of humankind in the world was asking, is water a human right? To which he often answered no, because he had water, why should he share? And I think right there, that might be part of the problem. Should water be a human right? Something that people absolutely need in order to live? Of course not, says the man who already has water. See what I'm trying to say here? Without a bit more compassion for our fellow human being injected into our decision-making process, this whole society thing isn't gonna work and we're gonna be right back at square one. That is why running a government like a business is a simply terrible idea. Because governments are a service, and businesses are transactional. And when you blur the lines between the two, it really boils down to exploiter and the enslaved. And we'll be right back where we started before too much longer, in a dictatorship. But that's enough of me standing on my soapbox. I imagine that since I am a factional representative now, or at the very least I'm going to be doing this an awful lot more. Really, everyone around me needs to stop taking one step back simultaneously and volunteering me for this stuff. I've got enough work to do as is. That's been Liberty's Latest with me, Pandera the Radio Angel. As a final note from the business sphere before I close the show out, Gunvalt's military has surrounded the isolated planet of Dolph in a military blockade, reducing its decay value to 0% and leaving it easy prey. This will be the final world to be cleansed of automaton presence within the Sagan and nanosectors, and I think a message needs to be sent here to both Super Earth itself and to the collective. These worlds are ours, and after we put our oppressors in the dirt, it is our hope that flowers grow from their graves, such that something good will come from their evil existence. For liberty, for freedom, for democracy, and for the angelic rebellion. Viva la Revolution Angelique!